Well, thank you all so much for being here. Welcome to the launch of Unrig Our Economy, Iowa. My name is Matt Sinovic. I'm the Executive Director of Progress Iowa. And along with a broad coalition of partners, we are excited to have you here today to talk about rewriting the rules of our economy so that we make it work for working families again in our state and across the country. Today, we are launching with a terrific lineup of speakers to make sure that working families' interests are put first in Iowa, and to hold elected officials like Congresswoman Ashley Hinson accountable for leaving working families behind. Now, throughout this year, we're going to engage in recruiting and organizing people to tell their personal story about how the economy can work better for them. We're going to do grassroots organizing. There's going to be paid media, creative earned media tactics, digital organizing. That's going to go on throughout the spring, summer, and fall to talk about how we can unrig our economy. And it all starts today. So we're thrilled to have you here to join us to be part of this conversation and part of shifting power back to working people. A couple of quick notes as we get started here. If you're not speaking, please keep yourself on mute. If you have questions for any of our speakers throughout the agenda today, please put them in the chat, and we'll get to them at the end of the program. And I'm going to welcome our speakers here, and then we'll go in order one at a time. But we have Reverend Abraham Funches, who's the director of the Waterloo Commission on Human Rights and pastor of the Jubilee United Methodist Church in Waterloo. Sue Dinsdale, the executive director of the Iowa Citizen Action Network. They also direct Lower Drug Prices Now, the Lower Drug Prices Now Coalition. Tanya Street, a small business owner from Cedar Rapids, and Charlie Wishman, the president of the Iowa Federation of Labor, AFL-CIO. So all of these speakers are here today to talk about how we need to unrig our economy and empower working families, and make sure that elected officials like Ashley Hinson stop giving a free pass to the corporations who through their greed and power grabbing are really making lives harder for our families in this state. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our first speaker. And we're thrilled to have him here with us. So I'll now just turn over to our friend, Reverend Abraham Funches. Reverend.
All right. Well, hello. Again, I'm Abraham Funches. I'm the pastor of Waterloo Commission on Human Rights, and I'm also the director of Waterloo Commission on Human Rights and the pastor of Jubilee United Methodist Church. But I'm certainly excited to be with you today. I certainly accepted the invitation with gusto, simply because I want to give at least some lip service to this notion that we need to build coalition across all faiths to bring more attention to the widening gap between the rich and the poor. We have to continue to do the work of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, who began to engage in the work of the Poor People's Campaign, to highlight these vast disparities in the country that has so much wealth. And of course, it's just fascinating to me, that in light of these vast wealth disparities, in light of the fact that we have everyday, ordinary, working blues people who are dealing with racial, capitalist, and sexist assault every day, that we choose to fixate on the lives of multimillionaires when it comes to who is winning Academy Awards, who got slapped, and who didn't. And so I just hope that, quite frankly, that we can spend a little more time looking at, everyday ordinary blues people within our local context as we try to fix these issues. The 24/7 Wall Street Report was something that came out in 2018. And I think it, quite frankly, highlighted a lot of issues that are very real to us within our context here in the city of Waterloo, for instance, but it echoes what people are feeling all over the nation, that there are vast disparities with respect to who owns a home and who's renting, who is doing well educationally, who is working and who is not working. and the wages that these people are making in each of these sectors across the United States. And I think all of us would agree that it is deplorable when we have so much wealth. It is inexcusable that people that don't have affordable health care, that they don't have a living wage, and so forth and so on. So I'm just excited, to be a part of a third Reconstruction type conversation as we continue to try to build a nation that does serve the interests of all of our people, from the wealthy all the way down to the everyday ordinary blues person. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here, for that, and for everything that you're doing. It is I could not, we all could not agree more that we need to build coalitions and work together on all these important issues. And that's what we're here to do today. So we're excited to have you as part of it, and continue this work together. So our next speaker is someone who is very familiar with building coalitions. Our friend from the executive director of the Iowa Citizen Action Network, and also the lead of the Lower Drug Prices Now coalition in Iowa, Sue Dinsdale. Sue?
Thanks, Matt. I'm happy to be here today with folks from Iowa's 1st Congressional District to say it's time to unrig our economy. We all know Iowans are grappling with the highest inflation rate in a generation, with the cost of everything from food and fuel to health care reaching all-time highs. We need to face the fact that the economy just isn't working the way it should for working people. The good news is that Congress has the power to tame inflation and make it easier for people to keep up with their bills, get ahead financially, and afford the medication they need. It just takes the right priorities and swift action. We all know people who are struggling to pay for health care, especially prescription drugs. And a recent Gallup poll found that current mentions of inflation as the nation's most important problem are the highest Gallup has recorded since 1985. When it comes to healthcare availability and affordability, not 49% say they worry about it a great deal, and 29% a fair amount. That's a lot of people. On Ashley Hinson's campaign website, she says, Ashley also knows we need to focus on targeted fixes to improve the current system, such as lowering the cost of prescription drugs. Ashley will take on Big Pharma to put an end to out-of-control prices of prescription drugs affecting all Iowans, especially seniors. She will work to increase competition in the marketplace and close loopholes that allow bad actors to take advantage of the system. All right, when is that going to happen? Instead, she's supporting a misleading bill that doesn't go nearly far enough. Even our own Senator Grassley addressed the issue by suggesting that if Democrats want to pass something to lower prescription drug costs, they need to do it now, before Republicans take control of Congress. This is all very telling when it comes to the priorities he and Representative Hinson have. Rather than playing partisan politics, they should be fighting for us. It's long past time we crack down on pharmaceutical companies that charge Americans up to 10 times the cost of the same drug that is charged in other countries. It's absurd that the federal law currently forbids Medicare to negotiate with drug companies to lower prices. We need our members of Congress to fight to pass legislation that will allow Medicare to negotiate directly with pharmaceutical companies, lowering the cost of prescriptions for beneficiaries of Medicare, as well as those with private insurance. We need to cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month, create a first time ever $2,000 out-of-pocket cap for seniors in Medicare Part D, and we need to hold our drug corporations accountable for raising prices faster than inflation by creating a penalty on them. This is a common sense measure that easily could get 51 votes in the Senate this year. It's time for Congress to act on the long overdue task of lowering drug prices so that we can save money, ensure affordable access to medicines, and create a fair system that doesn't leave patients and consumers at the mercy of drug company profits. Lowering drug prices would go a long way in helping Iowans keep up with inflation. It's one important part of building a strong economy, one that allows Iowans to have a decent quality of life. We have certainly lived through unprecedented times recently. Now it's time for elected representatives like Ashley Hinson to get to work to help Iowans stay ahead of the cost of living and achieve financial stability.
Sue, thank you so much for being here, for everything that you do, and all the work that our organizations are able to do together. We appreciate all of it, and having you as one of the leaders in this coalition. Excited to take on this project together, and all the good work that we can do. It is just, you described Ashley Hinson's record very well. I mean, she also voted against the American Rescue Plan, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, so many things that would help families people and families in our state, and that are helping. The rescue plan is already doing that. So it would help families. It would help rebuild our roads and bridges, and it would help small businesses like for our next speaker. She's joined us in the past, but we're thrilled to have her again, a small business owner from Cedar Rapids. I'm excited to turn it over now to Tanya Street.
Hi, Tanya. I don't have anything prepared, but I'm just basically going to speak from the heart. I've been so frustrated with Ashley Hinson, and just the things that she's voted against as a small business owner, as a mom. It's been really hard the last couple of years. And, like you said, she voted against that American Rescue Plan that lifted approximately, I want to say 27 million children, families out of poverty. And things like that would help our economy, our small businesses. That money was getting pumped back into our economy and into our small businesses. And they were, it was huge. It was benefiting, and she voted against it. And what is she voting for? She's voting for corporations that are right now price gouging. They're admitting to price gouging, and she is not helping the small business community at all with her votes. She talks like she does. She says on the outside, I want to be here for you guys, small businesses. But when something comes out that is going to help us as far as funding and helping, she votes against it. It's a I want to say it's a plan that is just going to bankrupt our country. I can't remember the wording that she used, but it's so frustrating when she does that. Families, I want to say middle class is the backbone of our community. And when they're struggling in this economy right now, then we're going to struggle. We're not the ones price gouging, the corporations are, and that's who she's working for. And we really need a representative that truly works for us, and not for those who are making record profits and working against our communities. So between that, I could go on and on and on. Healthcare, anything that would help small businesses. I don't even know where to go, but yeah, it's definitely frustrating.
Well, Tanya, thank you for speaking today, for speaking from the heart, because I think that's why we're here, and that's the kind of thing that can really make an impact and make a change in how people view politics and public policy, because it's so easy to get caught up in who voted, who won or lost the vote, who did this or that. And I think the more we can tell our own stories and make sure that people know the real impact of how their votes matter in our lives, the better off that we're going to be. So I really appreciate you speaking, and for I know you do a lot in active. So I want to thank you for all that as well. So our final speaker today is a great champion for working families all over the state, and a good friend. I'll just turn it over to Charlie Wishman, president of the Iowa Federation of Labor, AFL-CIO.
Hey, thank you, everybody. Again, my name is Charlie Wishman. I have the honor and privilege of serving as the president of the Iowa Federation of Labor, AFL-CIO. Thank you, Reverend Funchess, Sue, and Tanya for all being here to talk about some major issues that we can solve. We can do this. This is stuff. All it takes is just some political will to get things done. And that's really what we're lacking right now. But it's not just when it comes to votes. And it's very easy to get wrapped up in a lot of that, but there's so many other things. We can't even get Ashley Hinson to speak out when it matters for the working class of this state and for this country. You know, during the pandemic, and Tanya talked a little bit about this, but you know, when we see 10 of the richest people in the world, and 9 of them being Americans, saw their wealth double, while the working class of this country did not see anything close to that. And not only that, people like Representative Hinson wanted to end pandemic unemployment for folks when people were struggling the most last year. And we saw billionaires during that time period. I don't know that we're out of the pandemic, but at that, you know, so far, so they've seen a $5 trillion increase in what they've made at a time when we're all supposed to sacrifice. We're during times of need like this, we're always told, you know, the American people need to sacrifice, but we never see those at the top sacrifice. And in recessions and like what we've been in, the richest always seem to make the most while the rest of us suffer. You know, and it wasn't just the suffering that we saw, I think, when it came to wealth inequality being just thrown completely even further out of whack during the pandemic. You know, in her congressional district, when people were dying at meatpacking plants all over this state, what did Ashley Hinson even say? Nothing. She said nothing. Let alone did she ever actually advocate or try and make sure that there was some kind of an OSHA standard to make things safer for those workers. No, she was absent. She was absent when people were dying left and right in her district. And what did she do instead? She'd rather side with corporate interests that wanted to call people essential, but treated them as expendable. And look, even when things were not as tough COVID-wise, where was she when, you know, look, one of the biggest ways that you can fix wealth inequality in this country isn't just through tax laws, but collective bargaining and collective action is something that you can do that as well. You know, on this day in 1941, the UAW was on strike at Alice Chalmers, and they failed to get, you know, they failed to have replacement workers cross that line, and eventually that strike ended. But that was a 76-day strike. John Deere was on, the workers at John Deere, the UAW was on strike for a month and almost 2 months. She not only did she not even find time to bring somebody a freaking pizza or a bottle of water on a strike line, instead, she didn't even say anything. She said nothing about it until the strike was over and said, I'm really glad that this thing is over. And that's crazy because it's not just, look, even the Seltzer poll that was in the Des Moines Register at the time said 49% of Republicans saw the inequality that was going on and why people were striking. And they saw that, and 49% of Republicans were backing the UAW. She's not even in step with most of her party. She is so controlled by corporate interests. But, you know, that was nonpartisan. There were so many, again, Republicans and Democrats and independents that understood that these folks were just fighting for their fair share of the enormous wealth that Deere made during the pandemic. But it doesn't just stop there. Ashley Hinson's got a really, really bad voting record when it comes to everything that she even did at the Iowa State House before she went on to become a congressperson. You know, on this day in 1840, Martin Van Buren made an executive order that granted the 10-hour workday to government employees. That's Martin Van Buren in 1840, but in 2017, what did Ashley Hinson do? She voted to take away every single right that is meaningful except for one, for public employees to be able to bargain. She's not even up to 1840 standards when it comes to labor rights, and that's embarrassing. It should embarrass our entire state. She's voted against the PRO Act, and the PRO Act is something that makes it easier for people to organize. Without getting too much into the weeds about all the things that are good about the PRO Act, there's one simple stat you need to know. In this country, 65% of people would join a union if they had the opportunity to do so. And the density of union labor in this workforce is, depending on what state you're in, but nationally maybe 11, 12%. So tell me that those two numbers square. They don't. It shows you that the table, when it comes to organizing and allowing workers to freely organize and bargain, is completely slanted towards corporations. And there's a piece of legislation that would fix that, and she's voted no on that twice, I believe. But it's not that. She's voted to lower, you want to talk about a rigged economy, she voted to lower the minimum wage in 2017 also. Lower the minimum wage back to $7.25. That's not enough for anyone to live on. $15 is enough for anyone to survive on. She voted to slash benefits for workers who are hurt on the job. Look, I could go on and on all day about votes she's taken, and not only that, when people needed her to be there, she was absent. She wasn't there. She was not there when it counts. We need somebody who's going to help actually unrig this economy in all of the ways I'm talking about, in the way that we heard small business owners and faith leaders. We saw Citizen Action Network talk about. This is something that should be nonpartisan, but unfortunately, when it comes to Congresswoman Hinson, it's not about what's the best policy. It's about how does she not scare off her corporate donors? That's the end of the story. But it's not the end of the story, because there is obviously a chance for people to let her know that she can do better. And there's more than one way that we can do that this year. So with that, I'm going to stop, but thank you very much, everyone. And thank you, Matt, for having me on this morning and filling in on late notice for Brother Rick Moyle, who is not feeling well today. So wish him the best.
Oh, thank you for mentioning that too, Charlie. But we appreciate you being here for your for everything you said. And I mean, it is just plainly clear that Ashley Hinson has failed in her actions and in her absentee leadership or failed leadership, and not even being willing to speak out. I'll mention one other thing that even when she votes the wrong way, she then sometimes tries to take credit for things that have been passed. So we're starting to see that more and more. And whether that's because she regrets her vote, or she just is not fundamentally not wanting to be honest with her constituents. I don't know, but when she votes against things like the American Rescue Plan or the infrastructure bill that passed, and then tries to claim that she's the one who got it done, that adds a whole nother level of just really unacceptable, like I said, failed leadership from her as a member of Congress. I don't think there are any questions in the chat for now, but I have one to just throw out to the group. It's kind of a combination question. Is that if there are going to be people who are watching this later, watching this recording later, I would ask, like, what would your advice be for how they can get involved in this effort, and what they can do this year? And then also, what keeps you motivated toward or working toward this change? Charlie, you and I talked about this a little bit earlier today, but I think those are two things that I think would be helpful for folks. How do we get involved, and what keeps you going to stay involved? I'll just put that out to the group. Anyone who wants to jump in.
Well, I'll begin. Again, I'm just thankful to be a part of this conversation, and now I don't have the distraction of a phone ringing in the background. I was sorry about that earlier, by the way. But I would, try to encourage people to get involved with something that I have been working with as much as possible. That's the Poor People's Campaign. This is an organization that is national, and it is working on the state level as well. But, quite frankly, the Poor People's Campaign is always trying to reach out to the everyday ordinary blues person to get more and more involved in that particular movement. This is a part of the Reverend Dr. William J. Barber's blueprint, so to speak, for the nation, as he somehow embodies the spirit of Dr. King to re-energize and revitalize the Poor People's Campaign. It was the last thing that Dr. King was working on before he was assassinated. But I think that as the Poor People's Campaign continues to work with practitioners, experts in the field like those represented on the call today, you're able to couch some of these horrible policy decisions, in ways that really connects with the everyday ordinary working class person. And I think it's important that, in our agreement, as we say that what we're witnessing on our watch is morally reprehensible, that we work with people to change the situation then. It's not just talking about it, but being about it. And so you're working to change policy. As we listen to the data experts, let us know how detrimental some policies will be to some aspects of community in this state and in other places. And this ongoing shift, which has really been something that has been in my crawl, but this ongoing shift to those who are at the very top, while penalizing those on the proverbial bottom, is something that is really, really frustrating, because what we have learned over time is that we have enough money to take care of many of our problems in this state, in this nation, in this world. We have money. We have sufficient of money. It's just the lack of political will to do what's necessary in order to do right by our neighbor. And so, again, I would encourage you, obviously, to look up the Poor People's Campaign. Because the Poor People's Campaign, I think, is working with a host of experts and practitioners all across the land in order to try to help redress some of these issues. I just hope that we can continue to keep the faith, to continue to stay in the fight, because we have to make this world a better place for those who are with us and for our children. Unless we act now, we don't know exactly what the future will hold for our babies. So thank you again for allowing me to be a part of this conversation.
And same here, like, it's easy to stay silent, and throwing something at my TV isn't not going to get the word out. It's actually being vocal. It's getting out there and talking about it. letting your family and friends know. The other day I was actually in a conversation with a Republican, and of course he hears his things, I hear my things. I'm like, oh yeah, did you hear that they're banning books in schools? That our Iowa representatives are banning books, and no. And I showed him my phone, like, you know, you need to have these conversations, and although they might be tough conversations, but they're not getting that info, and we need to get out there. We need to I try to be active as much as I can. That's what I'm doing. I am involved with Indivisible, Cedar Rapids, and I get out there. I was on a meeting with them just before this, and we talk about, and we're being proactive in trying to educate people on not only the things that Ashley is doing and what she has voted for and what she's taking credit for, and and shouldn't be, but also getting involved in campaigns that need to be lifted and elevated and talked about, and this is who you need to vote for. It's a great group. And I'm glad I got involved, and that's what I'm doing is, like I said, I can throw as many things at the TV as I can, but that does not help. It's just having those tough conversations and getting involved and trying to spread the word.
Very good. Yeah, I just say never, ever, 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 ever give up. Some days we get tired and we're weary, and we just don't know if we can keep up the fight, but it's real, and it's everyday people, and we need to do everything in our power to help those that need help. I always say we don't do these things because it affects us personally. Maybe I can afford my prescription drugs. I do have good health insurance. I am a part of a labor union, but we do it because it's the right thing to do. And that's what we need our politicians to understand, is they need to do things because it's the right thing to do. I think you can go to any of our websites, iowacan.org is ours, and see what it is we're up to, and get in touch with us. Like Tanya said, be vocal. Don't throw things at the TV. Go out and visit Ashley Henson's office. Go to your representatives. Tell them how you feel. Email, write, call. Be that annoying person that just keeps at them, because that's what's going to help in the end.
And lastly, I would just say, like, let's break out of our silos. It's really, really easy for us. And I think probably everybody's guilty of just focusing on just their very, very narrow sort of interest. And the truth of the matter is when you have an economy that is rigged as badly as it is against the working class, we can't afford to sit in silos. Reverend Funches talked about Dr. King being assassinated. And I think it's important to remember that the reason why he was in Memphis at that time was there was a strike going on. This sign behind me that says collective bargaining is the American way, that came from that 1968 strike in Memphis, along with the ones that said, I am a man, because at the end of the day, people are just really looking for dignity and respect. And so, that was, Dr. King is an excellent example of not just focusing on one thing, because it wasn't just civil rights, but it was also, he was moving into labor rights. He was working on ending the war in Vietnam, and on and on. And he's a great example of why we need to build coalitions with folks that maybe sometimes we're not used to even working with. But again, when you have an economy that is so rigged against the average person, we can't afford to not work together on all of our issues and do the best we can. So thank you.
Thanks everyone. I'm glad to hear all of that, and it's just nice. I'm just glad that we all get the chance to work together on this. So I much appreciated. And it's a good reminder, Charlie, that they've, and everyone about working together and standing together, because it can seem daunting when you have a member of Congress who's seems like her sole mission in life is to help support the corporations that support her. There's a lot of money and power behind that, but by working together, it's a good reminder that there are more of us than there are of them, and that if we use our collective power and collective voice, then we can make a big difference. So it is. We're excited to officially kick off this effort to unrig our economy, and encourage you to visit unrigourEconomyIowa.com. That is one final ask I'll make, is to visit that to learn more about this effort. We are going to be engaging in pretty much all of the things that our speakers mentioned. We're going to be visiting Ashley Hinson's office. We're going to be continuing to speak out at events like these. We're going to encourage people to get involved in new and different in ways that they maybe weren't even aware of before, like potentially joining things like the Poor People's Campaign or other things that are going on in the district, to speak out on these issues. So the idea here is to engage people in as many ways as possible, to move that conversation forward about unrigging our economy and holding Congresswoman Ashley Hinson accountable for letting the corporations and the super rich just rig the rules against working families like us. So that is what we are going to do, and we're excited to have all of you as partners in this. So one last thank you to our speakers here, Reverend Abraham Funchess, Sue Dinsdale, Iowa Citizen Action Network, Tanya Street, small business owner from Cedar Rapids, and Charlie Wishman, president of the Iowa Federation of Labor, AFL-CIO. Thank you all for joining us today, and we look forward to carrying on this work together.